Good morning, Heidi, Riccio,
Yes.
John Toomey, Matt Duggan, and I'm Mark Zuberek. We're here visiting today the Essex Technical School, and the full name of the school is more encumberancing, right?
Yes, so we changed our name, or the name of the district was always Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School. And this fall, we officially changed the name of the school to the same. So making sure that we stayed true to our agricultural roots and making sure that agricultural was in our name was an important factor for many of our school community members.
So the full name of the school is?
Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School.
They're very good,
So
because
you're a descendant of the Essex Aggie School?
Yeah, so it's a combination of 3 vocational platforms or agricultural platforms. So Essex Aggie, North Shore Regional Vocational School, and then the Peabody Vocational Annex. So 3 schools that came together to form one.
Agricultural and
Technical.
industrial and basically,
Yeah, so technical is a name that's been used probably in the last 15 years to really encompass vocational education, agricultural, technical, industrial, what some people might call the old industrial arts education.
so what we have asked for is basically a little bit of a history of the school, because I know that in the past, this school has been evolving from the Essex Agricultural School, which was located across the street. And now we have a brand new school that was built back in the 2012,
Yeah.
2014, and it opened when?
So our school opened in 2014 with a little over 900 to 1,000 students because of the 3 schools coming together. And we're excited to open it, but knowing that technical education is extremely popular now, that we have really started to outgrow our space. So we're really looking at other space that we can expand opportunities for our students. But in 2014, we opened the new building.
you know, a Massachusetts or a Essex cultural, is it? Do you get your students from all over Massachusetts, or are they just Essex?
So our student base comes from 3 counties. So as being an agricultural school with 8 agricultural programs, we service Essex County, Suffolk County, and Middlesex County, and that affords us an additional 35 communities on top of the 17 North Shore communities that are actually part of our sending communities, is where our students come from. So 52 different communities across 3 counties.
Because originally this was a combination of the Essex Agricultural School plus the North Shore Vocational School, which is located in Middleton. Now it's become a business center.
Yes, exactly. And Peabody Vocational Annex. So we actually took many of the programs from Peabody Vocational School as well when they signed on to our charter as a regional vocational school. So many people forget that Peabody also had a vocational component, and they still do, but we assumed some of their programs here because we obviously have the space and the resources to be able to do that. So we're very excited that we have, you know, the need for vocational and technical and agricultural education has expanded, but there's more demand than there are actual number of seats. So we're really thinking of creative ways of how to expand that and add seats without necessarily adding an additional building project to us.
Does Essex County or at the old agricultural school, has that become a candidate for expansion?
Yes, so in 2018, last year, we began a feasibility study. So this side is actually called the North Campus, and across the street is called the South Campus. And the South Campus houses the Old Essex Agricultural academic classes plus historic Smith Hall. And Larkin Cottage, it's the Catherine Larkin Cottage, which sits on, it looks like a little green cape on the side of our campus. And last year we GNAP conducted a feasibility study to determine what was the best use of the space on the South Campus for expansion possibilities. And it was determined that one of the buildings, which is called McNamara O'Shea, it's a science building that sits in the back, is a best candidate for actually demolition, because the cost of renovations outweigh the actual value of the building. So we have started the procedure or process of demolition of that building. However, we are looking at renovating other existing buildings on that campus. So we have the historic Smith Hall, which houses right now just the administrative wing or administrative offices. And there's an entire second floor of that building, which our students will be renovating this summer with our vocational teachers in the building trades. We received a grant from the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center of $135,000. So the students will be upgrading and updating the electrical work, the LED lighting, new ceilings, paint, floors, etc. And that will be all work done by our students, which does not cost the district or any of our communities any money at all.
So they're actually getting training and
They will be earning, correct, and they'll be earning additional hours towards their apprenticeship license. So any hours that they earn working in a trade under a licensed professional, they actually are able to accumulate related theory hours, which will actually go towards their apprenticeship.
That's great. So
Yeah.
it's training on while in school.
Absolutely, and actually out of school, because the grant is going to be paying them $14 per hour. So in addition to getting the hours for apprenticeship, once the school year ends, the kids will also be earning $14 per hour.
so you're actually working, you're going to school and you're working in the trade that you're getting lessons
Exactly.
So
Yes.
in. Fantastic.
Yep.
it's a great combination of education and real on-the-job training.
And it's also valuable for them to be able to rebuild a building that's on a campus of where they're going to school, because in the next 20, 30 years, they're gonna be bringing their kids back and say, look, daddy or mommy built that, we helped rebuild this. And so although we have this beautiful campus on this side, across the street has seen its wear and tear and does need some upgrades that the funding for the new school just didn't support, to renovate the other side of the street. And so now we have to be creative with funds and grant opportunities, because we can't obviously go back to our communities and say, oh, we need more money to renovate this side. So if our students can be earning apprenticeship hours and experience while we're doing that, while we're renovating that space. So there's other spaces on the campus across the street that we'll also be renovating.
And that was neglected for many years by the state, wasn't investments. Can you just speak a little bit about the Larkin Cottage? Because I understand that has some quite historical significance for this, not just for this campus, but for the North Shore. I think that it was named after a woman that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so Catherine Larkin was a student here, but then she went off to war, and she actually died in the war.
This was
And so they named, so it was ended, could have been two actually,
Okay, all right.
Two, because then the building was named after,
Yeah, I
so.
see, okay.
And then the building was renamed, the Catherine Larkin Cottage, and it was a place where people would learn how to become homemakers, and women would learn how to kind of run their home like a business. So it wasn't
So
just
home
folding
economics.
sheets, but
So-
they did. They had, it really was a business if you were running a home. You had to
Right.
do the finances while. And in the late 50s, early 60s, it closed down, and it since then had not really been used for any significant purpose. And so at this time, it's really in disrepair, but it does sit on the far end of our campus. What we thought would be great would be to honor the agricultural education with an agricultural historical museum. So while we were doing the feasibility study, we went into some of the buildings and the attics, and we went to, there's a lot of artifacts in these locations, and they shouldn't really be sitting in an attic or in a basement. They really should be on display, because on the North Shore, Essex Aggie and Essex Agricultural Institute had a rich history on the North Shore, and we wanted to be able to honor that. So we came up with the idea of not just renovating the cottage into a small cottage, but really creating a net zero learning opportunity or sustainable structure for our students. So with that, we have a Larkin Cottage project that includes the Essex Aggie Alumni Association, as well as the Essex North Shore Foundation, Education Foundation. And we're looking at all self-raising funds and looking to do a 150-seat function facility, an agricultural museum with our agricultural artifacts, and then a net zero building. And all of our students from the building trades will actually be building it alongside tradesmen.
That's great. Yeah, anytime you see some historical renovation, rather than, there's always a tendency to just demolish
Yeah.
and replace with something new. So this is an example of, I think, what the community likes to see. We're, you know, protecting our past.
Yeah, so we can't, unfortunately, the building does need to be demolished. However, we are working.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah,
realize
sorry.
that.
So, but we are working with a company in Cambridge. The architect actually builds really kind of sustainable structures, museums, and keeps to the integrity of the location. So it will look like a cottage. It's not going to look
It won't
like
look
a modern
exactly-
building across the
but
street
it's
here.
not like a replica.
It's not, well, because the building is at 1,200 square feet, it's a very small building to be able to do a learning experience. Like, we
Right.
couldn't have a class of students in
I
there,
understand.
or we couldn't really have events in there because a 1,200 square foot cape plus the rooms being sectioned off. So what we opted to do is to, and we're working, actually, in fact, the designer is here today, and I can introduce you to him, but he's working with our students and our teachers to come up with a design that really fits with the agricultural community and the historical society. Yes, yeah.
Hey, the next item that I would like to bring up is the current school, the high school, basically has several different schools incorporated in this. Could you just go over that, and how many of those schools are in existence because of the Essex Aggie, the North Shore Vocational? So there are several different schools. Can you just give us an idea of what that is about?
So you're referring to the existing students?
Correct.
Okay, so our existing students are set into an academy model. So as you'll see along the outside of our buildings, you'll see different academies based on the types of occupations that the students are learning. So in the rear of the building, we have the Construction Academy, which is made up of the building trades programs. And those students historically will go on to the building trades, whether it's the electrical union, the carpenters union, the plumbing union, or as an apprentice. In addition to that, we have the Life in Sciences, which you look at your STEM academies and the technical services programs. So our school has 25 career and technical education programs, 17 of which are traditional technical vocational programs, and 8 are agricultural programs. We are adding 2 more next year, and one of them will be construction and craft laborers, Local 22, so our students will have the opportunity to enter into the union upon graduation, and then agricultural mechanics. So that will actually have a diesel background, but it will be really kind of learning all aspects of the farming industry. So out of those 25 programs, and 8 being agricultural, 6 of them are building trade type programs: masonry, landscaping, carpentry, electrical, plumbing, and HVAC. And those kids historically go right into the trades upon graduation. If they don't go into the trades and they go on to college, often those programs are construction management programs, say at Wentworth, institute, or they may be architectural, civil engineering, but definitely related to their occupation that they've studied here. In the health programs, like health assisting or dental assisting, the health assisting students primarily attend a nursing school upon graduation. When they go to school here, they get their CNA, their first aid, their CPR, but then they would need additional training in order to be an RN. Dental assisting, they actually will often go to a community college to get their dental hygienist license and then continue on in the dental field. In culinary arts, we actually have a student right now who is completing her senior year of high school at Johnson & Wales University. So it's exciting that she was able to leave here as a junior and go and get 1 year of her college not only paid for, but also done and completed while she's also finishing her high school requirements.
So is this the relationship that we talked about during the Finance Committee meetings between North Shore Community and Essex Tech?
Yes, we are very fortunate that North Shore Community College sits right behind us, because many high schools do not have that opportunity where our kids could really walk, through the path to
There's a
get to
path.
their school. And so we're really looking at expanding our opportunities for our students, not only our day students, but our adult students. In fact, yesterday we had the graduation ceremony for 20 advanced manufacturing students who, through a partnership grant with North Shore Community College and the North Shore CAP, as well as the Northeast Advanced Manufacturing, they all met the requirements to become employed in the machining industry, and advanced manufacturing is in the top 3 career choices and business workforce need for the North Shore, and it's really changing the path of their future. So many of them were either English language learners or were not seeing success in their jobs or movement in their jobs where they could really earn a living wage. So doing this training took a lot of perseverance as well, because it was a 15-week training, Saturdays all day from 7 to 3. They had to get here and work all day on Saturdays and then meet 3 days a week for 6 hours a day. So it was a pretty intense training program, particularly how many of them worked during the day as well. So it's just one example how we partner with North Shore Community College, but in addition to that, we have a dual enrollment program, as well as articulation agreements.
So you offer your students not only high school level, but college level and various other types of training, medical and so forth.
Absolutely. So many of our students earn, as being a Chapter 74 vocational program, many of them have what we call articulation agreements. So articulation agreements and dual enrollment are different. So articulation agreements is you come to school here for natural resources and you get 6 to 9 to 12 credits just by coming to school here and earning a B or better in certain courses outlined. And we work very closely with North Shore Community College to get that approved. The dual enrollment program is actually where they go to that college and take the class, and then that counts as a course not only for graduation but also for college credit. So we're very fortunate. We also work with Salem State University. We're starting to work with Endicott College. So a lot of Gordon College. So a lot of the colleges that are on the North Shore, but particularly the community college, we really want to promote for the affordability aspect of it. And then if the student gets the 2-year degree, often they can get a 2-year degree in 1 year because they're stacking their credentials.
Great.
Today's Boston Herald had an issue, funding for vocational tech training and so forth. And it was rather interesting. It said that 20% of the high school students in Massachusetts are enrolled in the CTE programs. But there's a waiting list of something like 3,200 students. I understand you've gone through this more or less here at this school.
Yes, we have. The popularity of our school has obviously increased with the new building and the opportunities that we're able to provide. we have 1,400 or over 1,400 applicants for 400 incoming grade 9 student spots. So what we need to do is really work with our communities of students that maybe didn't get in to our school, or maybe as juniors they realize, oh, I really should have gone to a vocational school because I don't intend to go to college and I don't really have any skills, but I'm interested in construction. So we're working right now with Gloucester Public Schools on the laborers program, Local 22, where we have 8 students that come every day to us, Monday through Thursday, and they're trained by the laborers union in order for them to get into that career pathway. So they spend their mornings at Gloucester High School taking their academic core subject classes, and then they come here in the daytime. That allows us the opportunity to increase our enrollment, and it serves 2 purposes. One, we don't need academic space for those students here because they're taking their academics at their home school, but it also saves that home school half of that tuition that they would normally pay if they were to be enrolled here full-time. So it's really a win-win for everyone, but most importantly, it's a win-win for the kids and our economy, because if a student doesn't go on to college but then can't earn a living wage, it's not very good for our local economy, because then they're not spending the money within their community, or maybe they have to leave our community in order to find a living wage. So we're tackling it that way. We're hoping, we wrote a couple grants, we're not sure if we received them yet, but for Peabody and Salem as well, where we're going to take 15 students from each community in their junior year and travel through to their senior year, and they'll be able to enroll in 4 different programs that we offer, those programs that we have space for, in order to give them those opportunities, those technical opportunities.
So you're giving the students more or less the opportunity of high school and college and technical training, which today, considering what it was like when I was growing up, that's fantastic. It's a variety that just didn't exist before.
Yeah, and what I'd really like to do, and I think people have been talking about it, is that grade 13, because many kids aren't really ready to leave high school, but they've met the requirements, so they get their high school diploma. And what we'd really like to do is look at that grade 13 pathway. Our teachers actually in vocational education are licensed grade 9 to 14. So we have 2 years that our teachers could continue to educate students that may have graduated from high school but aren't yet ready to go on to college, or maybe they don't want to go to college, they want to learn a trade. So we're looking at how can we grab students that are just graduating from high school, they don't really have a job or a skill, they're not going to college, and they don't really know what they want to do. And so we'd like to look at those students as well in order to give them a potential skill that they would benefit from.
So in encapsulating everything, what I'm hearing is that the unions and their training programs are being shared with the Essex Tech education facility. So they participate with you as the technical training that they need.
Yes.
And they prepare their apprentices to go on in the industry.
Absolutely. The Construction and Craft Laborers Union, which is Local 22 out of Malden, and they stretch all the way to Gloucester, so Boston to Gloucester. They have been really instrumental in developing these partnerships, and they have a workforce need. So there's, although construction doesn't fit in the top 3 industries of the North Shore, they are in the top 5, and we're going to need infrastructure. There's a lot of construction. If you just think of what happened in the Merrimack Valley last fall, and really kind of shut down the city, or cities and towns, you know, for weeks and months. And that all took construction workers to be able to get in there and do that. Well, that's not going to change. I mean, hopefully we do not ever have a catastrophe like that, but we will need to rebuild our bridges, our highways, our roads. Look at the construction that's happening in Boston alone. You look at the Boston hospitals that now have sites on the North Shore. those all had to be built. And they have to be managed. And so there's a lot of opportunities within that laborers program that go beyond being a laborer. They do a lot of EPA remediation, they do highway work, they actually work with the DOT, they do runway work at the airports. So there's a lot of different career opportunities even within that one laborers union. But once you get into the union, you have your annuities. I mean, it could be life-changing for a student that may never have had a parent or an adult influence in their life, or for anyone else that just kind of likes being outside, likes working hard, enjoys it, but they have great annuities, they have great profit sharing, 401k, benefits, full benefits, and they really help their own out. It is like joining a family. So it's an opportunity for our students, but it's also an opportunity for those students that didn't get into our school that would like to pursue a field of construction, and how do they get into it. They also help with college. So if a child finishes the laborers program but wants to get into construction management, they actually help pay for college.
So this leads me to the experience that John and I had when we went to the Danvers water treatment plant.
Mm-hmm.
There was a young lady there as a co-op.
Yeah.
Oh, is it intern or
It's
co-op?
co-op.
Co-op.
Mhm.
And she was very, engaged in what they were doing. So she was having on-the-job training, basically. And I came from a Northeastern University co-op program, 5 years, and that is leading you into that kind of a career path.
Absolutely. So there's a Drexel University study out. It's a little bit dated now, but it really reports that a child that has a work experience during high school historically has a better college experience, as well as advances in their career more often, because it's really teaching skills at an earlier age about how to work.
Working skills.
Absolutely. And at a vocational school, that is paramount to what our success is. And that student, which I just happened to get a picture of her, and she's presenting to the underclassmen students today at the treatment center, which is kind of cool. But those experiences are called cooperative education. And so in middle of their junior year, once they've received enough training in that field, they're able to go and work every other week and get paid. And showing up to work every day, at the proper time. There is no tardies in the workforce, right? There is no sick days in the workforce. There is no slacking or being on your phone in the workforce. And it teaches those skills that are really relevant for them, that I think sometimes are missing in youth now, and actually across the board, not just youth, but we forgot about those key workplace skills that are really needed to be a good employee.
Discipline.
Yes.
That's the key.
Yeah, but we have some students that are working in the machining industry that are students here earning over $20 an hour, and if they work on a Saturday, they're earning $36 an hour. And we're talking a 16 or 17-year-old student. We're not talking, a 24-year-old who's been working there for a few years.
I think you mentioned that during the budget hearing about, there were questions about, the amount of funds that Danvers taxpayers were being charged to send students here. And from my perspective, from going through the UMass system, is that it's an investment in the future, right? So you put tax dollars up front to have an educated workforce, and not necessarily college-bound students, but students that have more of a blue-collar background. That's really an investment, because when they go out into the workforce and they're in these skilled positions, plumbers, electricians, whatever, they end up paying back that investment through the taxes and just creating a more stable community. So it's...
Yeah, and we want them to stay in that community.
Yes.
So we want them to be able to afford an apartment or a house in the same community of which they grew up. And they can't do that if they don't have skills. They can't do that if they're not employable. And it's certainly an investment. And then they're spending their money in town as well. You know, they don't need to go, you know, to New Hampshire to purchase something because they can purchase it right in their community because they're making enough money to do so. And the money that we put in, it's an interesting, because we get, you know, education obviously costs money. And I don't think anybody, and I hope everybody can understand and support that. But in a technical education, we're not just talking about a $50 textbook. You know, we're talking about, you know, plumbing. If you think about the pipes, the copper, the materials, those materials cost money because they're practicing on those materials. And so with that comes a cost. But like you said, it's certainly an investment in our future. And we should invest in it. And, you know, we're also opening our doors, and we're hoping to work with Danvers High School more because they're also an innovations pathway with the state, and they're looking at advanced manufacturing, information technology, and biotechnology. And we have great equipment here, and to me, I think it would be really cool for our kids to be working alongside Danvers High School kids and showing the connectivity between the two. And to be able to offer Danvers High School students some hours in our lab where they could really gain some hands-on experience can be really helpful, I think, for them.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that briefly during your visit.
Yes, yeah.
So now Danvers is part of the team here, and we have our residents. We have 150 students that are residents and really belong to the Danvers High School, but they chose to come to the technical school, which gives them a different approach to education. Your programs here include both the technical side plus the academic side. Your seems like your results for the academic program are great compared to other surrounding communities. So can you just give us a little idea of the education
Awesome.
program,
Mm-hmm.
which is very good here? What does that mean to the students? Because they can come out from this school and go to college as well.
Absolutely.
If they qualify to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a student at Penn State, we have a student that got into Syracuse. You know, students can go as far as they want, right? I mean, it's not just the trades or academic. It's where their kind of passion lies and how much they're willing to do or go to get there. And academically speaking, years ago, when Ed Reform was out in 1993, is when kind of the MCAS first started and frameworks first started and standards for academic classes first started. And that was really the beginning for vocational education because the state put us on the same path as an academic comprehensive high school. And what they did was they said, you need to meet the same academic criteria. And so the dumping ground of what many people would call a vocational education back in the 60s and 70s, we all had to put a stop to that and say, okay, we have standards as well, and how are we going to meet them? And so we worked really hard on the tech side to bump up our academics to meet those academic requirements. However, there is research out there that if you take an academic comprehensive curriculum and merge it with an applied learning opportunity that uses math and science and ELA and social studies, and you bring them together, which we call integration, you're going to get a better product. You're going to get a better outcome because you have to be able to apply something in order to fully learn it and understand it. So you can pass a test, right, a multiple choice test, but can you take that math, that Ohm's law, and can you apply it in an electrical setting when you're talking about circuitry and power and loads and thinking about roof lines, you know, and slopes. And so what we're even working on now to beef it up a little bit is really using common languages across the board. So taking your academic language and using it on the tech side and then vice versa. So it's really integrating the two that we think the outcome becomes a better product because not all kids can learn sitting behind a desk and listening to an instructor for X number of times without actually doing something that's related to it.
It gets very boring if you do that,
Yes.
sitting behind a
It's
desk.
hard to, you don't remember it as well, I don't think.
Right.
Versus doing like tangents of a slope. or that kind of thing.
Well, kids learn differently now too. So I mean, we were all told,
You just sit in the classroom.
keep your head down and your mouth shut and don't say anything, take the notes, do what you need to do. And we can't do that anymore because kids, I feel like kids are smarter than they've ever been because they ask questions, right? They want to understand. And we need to be able to give them that. We need to be able to empower them to make sure so that when they get out into the industry, I mean, they can go as far as they want because we've given them those tools, you know, and they can advocate for themselves. And it's okay to advocate for yourself.
Speaking of past experience, we had engineers that came out of MIT, you know, whatever, Northeastern, very much theory oriented, book learning, but it has not been applied. So basically the first 2 years they learn to apply what they have learned, and that's the only time they were able to perform the job that they were hired for. So this gives gives your students and our students an opportunity to apply what they've learned from the books, but they do it instantaneously instead of waiting after
Yeah.
graduation.
Yeah, I mean, I like to associate it as we're almost 2 years ahead of the average student. And I say that because if you're a student that graduates from a comprehensive high school and you say, oh, I want to go be an electrician, you have to take all of the academic classes to be an electrician, plus the apprenticeship. And our kids have 2 years on them. So they're going to get their license, their electrical license, 2 to 3 years before a student that just enters at 18. And that's often for many. Now, when the academic side, back to MCAS, we would get reports from kids that would go to UMass Lowell for engineering, and they would come back to us and they would say, I did great in CAD, I did great in SALT, I did great in all of those applied learning, but the math I was struggling with. So we needed to look at that as a technical school and say, okay, they're not getting the math that they need to be the engineer. So what we're looking at right now in our program of studies is looking at a pathway. So what programs are we offering and what types of math and sciences do those kids need for that particular program? For example, in health assisting, they need anatomy and physiology, hands down. They cannot go to nursing school without having that. So we're offering that as their science for the health assisting students or the vet science students because they also have anatomy and physiology that they need. Whereas auto technology or engineering might need physics. And physics is going to be an important aspect, or pre-calc, and those are going to be important classes that they're going to need to take. So we're actually kind of reorganizing our entire program of studies to make it more focused towards their pathway that they're in.
Heidi, one of the things that has been discussed in Danvers is the achievement level of the MCAS scores and how well are we performing in regard to surrounding communities. How does Essex Tech compare to surrounding communities with your scores?
So we have been very fortunate that our school has been considered what we call a level 1 school for MCAS accountability standards. This year is a little unique because the state changed the MCAS accountability system. And so what they were looking at as level 1, they don't count it as level 1 any longer. So I think schools this year are really kind of in flux, waiting for the next round of MCAS and how the accountability will actually play out. There are some things that we can improve upon, and that's what we're working on. But historically, across all of our sending communities on the North Shore, we are in line with a level 1 school. So we're very fortunate that we have that ability to do that. We have wonderful teachers that just do whatever it takes to get that student prepared for, the MCAS. But this year being a new test, everything is online, will be interesting to see, I think. And I think all of the communities on the North Shore will probably have to work together to decipher, what are the needs, what are the trends, what do we see as a need in order to make sure that the students are prepared for that next version of the MCAS.
So in a few words, how does Essex Tech compare to Danvers High, Beverly High? What are the scores like? I mean, are they comparable, or are they consistently have been increasing?
So our scores are comparable across the board with our sending communities like Danvers, Beverly, and we've been very fortunate that have had some success. We actually have a great director of curriculum that has a writing across the curriculum that has really increased our ELA, English scores, which has been really nice. We did see a little bit of a dip in our science and our math, but we're working on that like many other districts. I think you're going to see ups and downs across the board. We are unique. So if you think about 52 different communities that we service, and on top of those 52 communities, so there's over 100 middle schools that we're working with, including private schools and charter schools that we draw kids from. So they have all different philosophies of education that they're coming from. I think we do a great job in making sure that our students are doing well and performing.
Okay. Last question before we go for a tour.
Mm-hmm.
How does some student that wants to come to Essex Tech, how do they apply, and what qualifications do they have to attend this school?
So we're a public high school, so they would, but we do have an application process, which is what all vocational schools in the state has. So there's a criteria of attendance, discipline, there's an interview, and grades. However, it's not the deciding factor of how a child gets in here. The interview is worth 40% of the criteria, and we do that, so we interview all 1,500, over 1,450 applicants. We interview every single one of them, because we think it's really important that the student understands what a vocational education is about, because it is a different type of learning, meaning they do their academics for half the time and their technical or agricultural program for the other half of the time. So they need to be prepared for that, and some kids aren't. They want to do a regular, Monday through Friday schedule, which we don't have that. And so it's important for them to be able to also articulate what program are you interested in, and why do you want to come here. So if a student does not make, so out of the 1,500 applicants, we actually always over-enroll, knowing that there will be at least 10 to 15% of those students that did get in that decide not to come. And so that's what we're working on right now, is taking kids from the wait list and moving them into it as students decline their acceptance. We are working with the state in trying to get some flexibility in our admissions policy, because the state has a criteria that they have for all regional vocational schools. So we basically use the state recommended application process, an admissions process, and then it gets approved by the admissions policy. We also, there is a time after they apply, and that if the child does not get in, they can actually file an appeal. And the appeal doesn't necessarily get them in, but it does allow for the conversations, because each school district has a different attendance policy, for example. So some schools might say, oh, a medical is an excused absence, while others say, oh no, an absence is an absence and a medical counts as an absence. And so if you have a child that may have been sick, for 5 days and then shows that they have more absences than the norm, they may not get as many points. So this appeal process allows the parent and the student to kind of go through any sort of circumstances that may have prevented them, from kind of scoring the highest score.
Great, and the capacity of the school is what right now?
So our capacity is 1,600. We are not at 1,600 right now, we're at 1,408. And we did that because we were gradually increasing enrollment over time. Because you can't all of a sudden let in 200 more kids, because you need resources to do that. And for staffing purposes, and obviously community purposes, we needed to kind of gradually increase enrollment, and that's what we're doing. So we'll have, last year we had 380 grade 9 students. This year we're gonna have 400 to 405. So we're kind of gradually increasing it so that we keep to that. And then any students, if a student goes back to their sending community because they just didn't want to be here or for whatever reason, or maybe they moved, we will try to fill that seat. So we actually have, right now, we have 150 upperclassmen students that will be interviewing for a spot in one of our programs that we have openings in. So we try to fill every seat, is what the state wants us to do as well, because of the wait list. You don't want to say we have 30 open spots in the sophomore year and not try to fill them. So we're trying to fill those seats.
Great. Thank you very much, and what we'll
Thank
do
you.
is we'll get a brief tour of
Yep.
the facility, and then we'll take a shot at the outside of the buildings.
Okay.